I was diagnosed with a serious illness. Then my wife and mother betrayed me, so I disappeared quietly and rewrote the story they thought would end me. She looked me dead in the eye over mashed potatoes and green beans and said, "You should be grateful she hasn't left you yet, my own mother." Voice calm, eyes dry, as if she were commenting on the weather. My fork stopped mid-air, and I realized my hand was trembling, not from the illness but from the clarity of that moment. 2 weeks earlier, I was diagnosed with something they called serious but slow-moving, one of those long Latin name syndromes that sounds like a Wi-Fi password, and comes with a laundry list of symptoms and a timeline nobody wants to pin down. The doctor's words were clinical but hopeful. "You'll need to adjust," he said, "but this isn't the end. Far from it." I believed him until I got home. My wife, Lynn, barely looked up from her tablet when I told her. "So, what, you're not dying tomorrow?" she asked, almost annoyed. I remember laughing nervously. "No, it's manageable. We'll just need to, she cut in, setting down the tablet. "That's the thing. You say we like this changes my life." That was the first crack. And over the next few days, it spread like a hairline fracture down a windshield. Little things, the shift in her tone, the way she stopped saying goodnight, her sudden habit of locking her phone even during dinner. She'd disappear for hours with vague explanations, yoga, book club, helping Angela with the baby. Angela doesn't have a baby. And then came the mistake of the group text. She thought she was sending it to someone else. I saw the notification flash across her screen while she showered. Just one line, but it was enough. "He's still here. FFS. No name, no emoji, just exhausted contempt." I didn't confront her. Not then. I just watched and waited. That brings us back to that Sunday dinner. I was sitting at the head of the table like some tragic king in a bad play. Mom to my left, Lynn to my right, and an air so thick with unspoken judgment I could barely swallow. We hadn't even cleared the plates when Mom leaned in, patted my hand like I was a feeble old man, and said it again, clearer this time. "Just accept it, sweetheart. You're sick. She's young. It's not like you'll be around forever." "And Lynn?" She clinked her glass to that. No denial, no shock, no shame. Just a tiny smirk at the corner of her mouth, like they were in on a joke I wasn't smart enough to get. That's when I saw it all for what it was. Not just betrayal, but relief. They wanted me gone. My diagnosis didn't scare them, it excited them. It was a clock ticking down to their freedom. I excused myself to the bathroom, washed my hands, looked in the mirror and smiled. Not because I was okay, I wasn't. Not because I had some master plan, I didn't, not yet. But because in that exact moment, seeing my reflection, the faint tremor in my left arm, the weariness in my eyes, I realized something powerful. I wasn't the one dying. I was the one waking up. The garage camera lost signal at exactly 2:14 a.m., 6 hours of static. Not a glitch, not a power outage, just nothing. Later, Lynn would blame the internet, the router, the app. She'd call the camera company. They'd tell her everything was fine, and that would bother her more than anything else because she'd never find out how I did it. I stood in that garage for a few minutes before I left, just listening. The house was silent except for the hum of the fridge in the kitchen and the occasional creak of the settling beams overhead. Lynn was asleep or pretending to be. She hadn't asked about the doctor's follow-up, didn't even look up from her wine when I came in earlier. She was already 3 glasses in, shoes off, watching some show about rich people screaming at each other. I walked past her once, stopped, looked at her. She didn't notice, didn't want to notice. That helped. I went into the closet and reached for the old navy duffel bag she once joked made me look like a gym teacher. I hadn't used it in years. Inside were 3 things. A waterproof folder with notarized copies of our house deed, my will, and a durable power of attorney she didn't know I'd revoked last month. A flash drive taped to the inside lining, password protected. It held screenshots, video backups, and voice memos, including one of her saying, "If he croaks, at least the house is paid off," and $18,200 in small bills I'd been quietly pulling from our joint account since February. She thought I was buying supplements. No clothes, no toothbrush, not even a phone charger. You don't need much when you're not running, you're executing. Before I left, I sat at the kitchen island and poured myself a small glass of water. Looked around. The smell of that vanilla-scented candle she liked still lingered. Fridge magnets with fake motivational quotes. Our wedding photos still hung beside the pantry, though crooked now, like even the wall had lost interest in keeping up appearances. I took the photo down, slid the picture out, flipped it over. There on the back, in her handwriting from a lifetime ago, together no matter what. I put it face down, walked out the door, didn't lock it. Outside, the air was cold, fresh, like the kind of cold that invites you to do something permanent. My car wasn't parked on our street. It hadn't been for weeks. I'd left it in a lot 2 blocks over, paid cash. Cameras covered only the entrance, not the corner I parked in. As I walked there, I passed the bakery where we used to get coffee on Saturdays. They had a new display, gingerbread men shaped like skeletons. Cute, she'd like that. Shame, she'll never taste them again. By the time the sun rose, I was already 143 miles away. No phone, no GPS, just the printed map I traced with a pencil like it was 1996. No goodbye, no note, just absence. Let them stew. Let them spin their story. Because by the time they realized I was gone, I'd already started becoming someone else. 3 days after I vanished, Lynn posted a photo of us on Facebook, one taken 10 years ago, on some forgettable anniversary dinner. I looked tan, half drunk, and wildly in love. She looked effortlessly smug, like someone posing with a prize they'd already decided to return for store credit. Her caption, "Please come home. He's sick. He's not thinking clearly. We're all so worried. Broken heart." 176 likes in 3 hours. 42 comments. Half from friends I hadn't heard from in years. Prayers up. Hope he's found safe. So sorry you're going through this, Lynn. The other half were more disturbing. Maybe it's the meds messing with his mind. Does he have a history of this kind of behavior? I remember he had a temper. Ah, yes, the temper. Otherwise known as, he once didn't like my cousin staying with us for a month, rent-free. Lynn had always been subtle with her narratives. Until now, this wasn't subtle. This was curated collapse. It was reputation warfare dressed up in concern. She even added a black and white filter to the photo, because nothing screams manic episode like a grayscale memory. Meanwhile, my mother took a more old-school approach. Church ladies, book club, her bi-weekly lunch circle at the country club where they pretend the chicken salad is still homemade. He's not well, she told them. We've been trying everything. Therapy, supplements. He just drifted. Drifted. That was rich coming from the woman who once said I was too emotional after my father died. She'd been waiting for this storyline, one where she was the long-suffering mother and I was the cracked porcelain teacup. She even called my cousin Mike, whom I hadn't spoken to since he stole my tool shed ladder in 2009, and told him I'd gone missing after a particularly hard week. Mike texted me, "Yo, you good?" I didn't answer. I watched from a motel room in Missouri. I sat cross-legged on the stiff, chemical-scented carpet, burner laptop open, using hotel Wi-Fi and a 5th PN routed through Canada. I had fake profiles on every platform, each one built months in advance down to the birthday and fake high school. That's how I saw her DMS. Yes, Lynn was sloppy. She messaged a man named Greg Wineglass from her private account, the one she didn't use for family, the one with no last name. She told him I'd finally snapped, that she was doing everything she could to cover the bills, that I'd always been a little controlling. Greg's reply, "If you need to come back here, you can." Back, interesting. Now I had a name and a location. Greg lived in Tulsa. The metadata in his old posts told me as much. A few more clicks and I had his real last name, a LinkedIn profile with a fake job title, and most amusing, a wedding ring visible in his company's annual retreat photos. So, he was someone else's prize too. By the end of that week, I had a folder labeled Gregory M. Tulsa sitting neatly on my desktop beside Linesets and mom voicemails. I took a bite of the cold burger I'd left on the heater, looked at the screen and smiled. They weren't just lying. They were investing in the lie, building it, believing it. And I was going to let them because the higher they stacked the narrative, the harder it would fall when the bottom was quietly cut out from under them. Collapse always looks more dramatic when you've just finished painting the ceiling. I didn't stumble onto the affair like some clueless husband tripping over lace underwear in the laundry basket. I cataloged it with timestamps, GPS locks, reverse image searches. If I hadn't been so disgusted, I might have admired the sheer sloppiness of it all. Lynn wasn't clever, just shameless. It started with the receipts. One from a boutique hotel we'd never stayed at, billed to our joint card, marked conference expense. I double-checked her calendar. No conference. I asked her casually, "You went to Dallas last weekend, right?" She blinked. "No, babe. I told you it was Waco. Angela's sister was in town." Angela again! That poor woman is going to end up as an alibi on a gravestone. So I looked deeper. The hotel emailed her a receipt for the spa package. I only knew that because she forgot to delete the auto-forward to our shared email folder. My account was still connected. Her mistake. Then came the wire transfers. Small at first, $50 here, $80 there, to a name I didn't recognize. R. Gentry, tagged in her banking app as dog walker. We don't have a dog. So I dug. Found out R. Gentry lived 2 blocks from Greg's address in Tulsa. Cross-referenced him with social media. The same guy once tagged in an old dinner photo Lynn had uploaded 2 years ago. Captioned work trip, missing home. In the background of that photo, my mother, laughing, sitting across from Greg. That one nearly broke me because it wasn't just her. My own mother knew, and she said nothing. Worse, she enabled it. Lent Lynn her car, gave her spa money, told neighbors I was too tired to come out when I was sitting in the living room fully dressed. She was laying bricks in a narrative I hadn't even realized they'd started building around me. So I stopped reacting and started recording. Voice memos from behind doors. One of Lynn on the phone saying, "He's not going to last long anyway." Another of my mother whispering, "Just be patient, it'll resolve itself." I made backups of everything. 3 copies in 3 separate cloud vaults under different fake names. One under a vintage car club forum, another in a dummy Dropbox folder labeled Tax Docs 2011. The third printed, sealed in envelopes, and mailed to myself under a private P.O. box. Some nights I'd sit on the edge of the bed while Lynn snored beside me, her back turned, and I'd scroll through her deleted photos restored with simple recovery tools. She once took a mirror selfie in a hotel room wrapped in a robe I didn't recognize. Captioned "Mine tonight, kiss Mark," and forgot it synced to the cloud. Idiot. Each discovery chipped away at something I thought was unbreakable, and each one hardened something else. I started talking less, smiling more, playing the part of the dazed, sick husband. "You look tired," Lynn would say, brushing past me. "You should rest." Rest? No. I was documenting a crime scene with the patience of a surgeon and the eyes of a sniper because they thought this illness had made me soft, vulnerable, fading. But it hadn't weakened me. It had refined me. Every pill I took, every fake nap I pretended to fall into, every smile I gave when they slipped up was strategy. And when I disappeared, I didn't just walk away. I vanished with a war chest. She opened the door holding a mug, barefoot in flannel pajama pants, and froze when she saw me. 18 years. That's how long it had been since I'd last seen my daughter. And not by her choice or mine, really, but by the corrosive whispering of one woman, my mother, who had spent years quietly slicing away at our bond like a dull blade working through rope. "She needs structure," she'd said when Abby started pushing boundaries as a teenager. "She gets that from her mother's side," she said when Abby skipped school to visit her friend in the hospital. "She's trying to manipulate you," she said when Abby asked me tearfully not to move across state lines after the divorce. And like the coward I was back then, I listened. I didn't fight hard enough. I didn't see what was happening until it was too late, until I got a Christmas card with no return address, and just her name, Abby, in lowercase. No love, Dad. No photo. Nothing. Just the barest nod of existence. And now here she stood. 29. Older, sharper, tired maybe, but in a self-protective kind of way. Her eyes still narrowed the same way when she was suspicious. She used to look at broccoli like that. She didn't speak, just stood there, mug in hand, steam rising between us like a veil neither of us wanted to pull down first. "I don't expect anything," I said, "not even 5 minutes, but the first have something you need to see. And if you let me, I'll sit outside and explain. Then I'll go." Still silence. "Then finally, you look thinner." I smiled a little. "Yeah, illness does that. Betrayal helps too." Something in her face shifted, not softened, but cracked. She stepped aside. The cabin was small but warm. Mismatched furniture. A half-finished puzzle on the table. Paintings on the wall, not prints. Originals. Her style, bold, tense colors. She was still painting. That nearly buckled me right there. She asked, not making eye contact. I nodded. "Please." I sat at the edge of the couch, pulled the envelope from my bag. Thick, heavy with paper and things that shouldn't have had to exist. "I know I wasn't there," I said, "and I'm not asking you to forgive me, but if you ever wondered why things went the way they did, why I stopped calling, why you thought I chose them over you." I slid the envelope toward her. It wasn't the truth. She didn't touch it at first, just stared at it like it might bite. Then finally she pulled the tab and opened it. Photos, printouts, letters, voicemail transcripts. A copy of the old will my mother changed without my signature. A screenshot of the text my mother sent Lynn 6 months ago. "If he makes it to Christmas, I'll be shocked. You've waited long enough. Take the house and move on." Abby's hand shook slightly as she read. She looked up at me once. I couldn't tell if her eyes were glassy or just catching the light. "You lived with that?" she asked quietly. I documented it. Her laugh was dry. "Of course you did." A beat passed. "You know," she said, "when Mom died I thought about calling you, but I figured it was better to leave things dead." "I know." She leaned back, took a sip of her tea, looked me over again. Then after the longest pause, "You hungry?" I hadn't realized how tense I'd been until that moment. My shoulders dropped a half-inch. "I could eat," I said. She stood, opened a cupboard, and said, "Hope you still like tomato soup. I make it from scratch now." Something shifted. Not forgiveness, not yet. But something far more important, possibility. The first crack in their pretty little lie came not with a bang, but a transaction declined. Lynn stood in line at the grocery store, a bottle of overpriced red in one hand and her phone in the other, punching in her PIN code like the world owed her obedience. The machine blinked, then blinked again, then barked out a cold, final, declined. She laughed loudly because someone like her doesn't get declined. She told the cashier, "Try it again. It's our joint account. There must be a system error." It wasn't. She tried her banking app, error retrieving data. She tried calling the customer service line. After 15 minutes and 2 elevator music loops, the rep informed her very politely that she was not authorized on the account. She practically spit through the phone. "I'm his wife." "Yes, ma'am," the voice replied. "But your access was formally revoked on March 14th. That was 3 months ago." She dropped the wine and left it there. Walked out of the store in a haze of confusion, anger, and the growing sick suspicion that something had slipped through her fingers while she was too busy texting Greg behind my back. Next stop, the bank branch. She showed up with a fake smile and tight blouse, thinking charm might fix what treachery had broken. They printed out a copy of the deed transfer paperwork. She barely looked at it until she saw the date, 4 months ago. My signature, not hers, and one very specific clause. The house, or rather the house, was now owned by a trust. A trust set up in the name of one Abigail Rhodes. "Abby, my daughter!" Lynn's eyes must have twitched, or maybe it was her soul trying to exit her body through her cheekbone. "Can I speak to someone in legal?" she asked, her voice. "We've already spoken with them," the teller said. "Everything is in order." She stumbled out and called my mother. And that's when the second fracture hit. Because Mom, still wrapped in her delusion that she was the architect of my disappearance, and not just a pitiful co-conspirator, answered on the second ring. "Sweetheart, don't worry," she said, her voice syrupy. "I'm sure he's just confused. You know how men are when they get sick. Paranoid, detached. My Harold..." She didn't get to finish because a courier pulled into her driveway at that very moment, stepped out in khakis and a gray polo, and handed her a manila envelope with a signature-required sticker. Inside, a letter, a transcript, and a tiny USB drive. The transcript was every voicemail she left me last year, including the one where she said, "Let her have a little fun, darling. She's not cheating. She's just bored. You'll be gone soon anyway." And a USB. With audio clips, edited neatly with dates and timestamps. Her whispering behind my back, her dismissals, her promises to Lynn, and that one fateful message to Greg when she borrowed Lynn's phone by accident and called him instead of me. We're close. Just a few more months and he'll be out of the picture. I'll make sure the estate transitions quietly. He trusts me. Trust, such a beautiful, brutal word. By nightfall, Mom was leaving panicked voicemails on her attorney's line. And Lynn? She tried to call Greg, straight to voicemail. She tried again and again until the phone finally rang once and then disconnected, a sign of someone who blocked her mid-ring. That's when the panic truly set in. Not because she was losing the house, not because her finances had turned to dust, but because for the first time she realized she wasn't in control of the story anymore. The mask cracked, the fantasy collapsed, and all that was left was her reflection, and a story no one believed. The night Lynn lit the candles, she was wearing the black silk dress I bought her for our 10th anniversary. The irony would have been amusing if it wasn't so grotesque. She poured wine, Cabernet, always too dry for her taste, and set the table like a scene from a magazine, folded napkins, steak plated with asparagus, dim lighting, romance repackaged, but not for me. Greg sat at the end of the table, still in his dress shirt, sleeves rolled to the elbows, like he wanted the world to see his forearms had done work today. She laughed a little too loudly at something he said, probably some story about his consulting firm, which I'd already verified was a glorified title for semi-legal freelance logistics. It didn't matter. She didn't love him. She loved the idea of being seen with someone who wasn't slowly dying. What she didn't know, I'd had the server booked a week in advance. Not a process server. No, I hired someone from a catering agency. Dressed in black slacks, white shirt, even a bow tie. Looked like part of the staff. Walked up to the front door, like he was delivering late dessert. Lynn opened it, still holding her wine glass. Oh, you're early. Wait, we didn't order. The man smiled. Special delivery for Lynn Banning. He handed her a black folio and left. Before she even blinked, she looked down at it like it was a joke. A prank. Then she flipped it open and saw the top sheet, petition for divorce. Underneath, restraining order application. Below that, asset seizure request. And finally, what made her drop her wine glass onto the rug? Flash drive, evidence of marital misconduct. She stood frozen in the doorway, staring into the file like it might catch fire. Greg looked over from the table, fork midair. What's going on? Lynn tried to laugh, waved it off. It's just some legal mix-up. He's trying to... Greg stood, walked over, looked at the top sheet, read it, then looked at her. You told me he was in a facility. She blinked. What? You said he wasn't well? That he was under care? That he was sedated? That's what my mom said. That's what we thought. He was sick. Greg held up a hand, stepped back, looked at the flash drive, then at her, then at the door, and walked out. No shouting, no drama, just one word. Damn. Lynn followed him to the porch in her bare feet, screaming his name, the silk clinging to her like a shrinking curtain on a collapsing stage. He didn't turn around. What she didn't know, what he didn't know yet, is that the HR department at Greg's company had received an anonymous package 3 days earlier. Inside, a short video time-stamped, showing him entering a hotel room midday during company hours. 2 voice messages forwarded directly to his manager's inbox. 1 printed receipt. It didn't take much. Conflict of interest was a phrase that HR loves. So is investigation. His phone would be ringing soon, but not with her number. Back inside, Lynn finally dropped to her knees, still holding the folder like it might disappear if she just crumpled it hard enough. The candles flickered. The steak grew cold, and the silence in that room. It was the first honest thing she'd heard in months. The fundraiser was held at the Astoria Pavilion, a restored Art Deco ballroom with enough polished marble and white linen to convince the suburban elite they were important for an evening. Lynn showed up solo, dressed to the teeth, diamonds dangling like bait, her makeup sculpted with surgical precision. This was supposed to be her re-entry, her bounce back. After weeks of silence, lawyers, and public questions, tonight was her chance to remind the social circle that she was still someone, still beautiful, still a presence. The whispers had already started as she walked in. She looks thin. Didn't she used to come here with her husband? I heard he's not well. No one knows. Vanished. She smiled through it. Let them talk. Let the silence work for her. She figured people would fill the void with their own pity. That always worked before. The evening rolled on as expected. Polite applause for sponsors, forced laughter, overpriced wine, and recycled glasses. Lynn positioned herself near the event chairwoman, made sure to be photographed at least twice near the floral wall. If she kept the rhythm right, smile, nod, sit, smirk, maybe the world would believe she hadn't been hollowed out from the inside. Then came the tribute. The lights dimmed. A projector flickered to life. Tonight we also honor a donor whose generosity made the new outreach center possible. Lynn tilted her head. She hadn't heard of any new donors. The screen lit up with a familiar face. Her face? In a photo from 3 years ago, Lynn and I standing at a ribbon cutting for a literacy initiative. She froze, murmurs buzzed. Then the photos changed. Me standing with kids at a workshop. Me smiling beside a restored cabin flanked by 2 veterans. Me shaking hands with the mayor. Me beside Abby. That's when the room shifted. The crowd went quiet. The air tightened. Lynn's wine glass wobbled slightly in her hand. Abby was unmistakable. The same sharp cheekbones, the fire in her posture. She had my eyes, and the same crooked grin I thought I'd lost when she was a teenager. And there I was, arm around her shoulder. Both of us smiling like nothing had ever been broken. The video faded to black. Applause. Lynn stood completely still, mouth slightly open. Then she felt it. That unmistakable shift in atmosphere. People were looking at her now, not with admiration, not even curiosity, with knowing. And then she saw me, back of the ballroom, not center stage, no spotlight, just leaning against a column, hands in my pockets, dressed in the same dark suit I wore to her father's funeral, alive, calm, not frail, not sick, not a ghost. I raised a glass, gave her the smallest nod, no smile, no scowl, just that little gesture that said, I see you now, the real you. She dropped her clutch. It hit the floor with a slap. No one bent to pick it up. She turned to the event chairwoman, mouth open, fingers trembling. but the woman had already turned away, moving towards someone else, someone present. Because in that moment, Lynn realized what she was, the past tense. And the worst part, no one even clapped for her. The envelope arrived mid-morning, hand-delivered by a courier who barely made eye contact. Lynn was still in her robe. Mascara smudged from the night before. Her hair twisted up in that brittle, slept-on way that always made her look older. She opened the door with one hand and a hangover aspirin in the other. "Mrs. Banning?" She blinked. "Yes, this is for you, signature required. No folder this time. Just a stark white envelope, thick and cold to the touch. Legal weight. That kind of paper doesn't fold. It binds." She sat at the kitchen island, the same marble-top slab where she used to sip coffee and browse home renovation blogs, while telling herself her husband was just too sensitive. She broke the seal. Inside was a letter she recognized the law firm that once handled our estate planning. Below that, a statement of full beneficiary transfer. It took her a moment to parse the language. The document was surgical in tone, stripped of sentiment, dripping with finality. All my business shares gone. All pension and retirement assets transferred. All life insurance policies redirected. Medical permissions revoked and reassigned. Recipient, Abigail Rotes. It wasn't just a gesture. It was total removal. A systemic deletion. She'd been wiped off the table like a spilled drink. Then she saw it, tucked inside a handwritten note. Not a card, not a letter. Just one torn sheet of yellow legal paper. "You two kept waiting for me to die. Turns out I had to. Not physically, just socially. I may have been sick, but you two were the real disease. Consider this chemo." She laughed, but it wasn't laughter. More like an exhale cut in half by disbelief. She stood, knocked over her chair, began pacing barefoot across the cold tile like she could outrun the meaning of the words. She called the firm, got put on hold. When someone finally answered, they confirmed every line. The changes had been in motion for months. Signatures, witnesses, even psychiatric evaluations to ensure I was of sound mind. "Is there anything I can do?" she asked, voice tight, trembling. A pause, then the answer she dreaded. "No, ma'am. The assets are no longer yours to contest." Click. She threw the phone across the kitchen. It cracked against the fridge, slid under the counter like it was hiding from her. 10 minutes later, the second letter arrived. This one wasn't hers. It was for my mother. Delivered by certified mail to her retirement condo where she'd been sulking for days, refusing visitors, holding on to whatever social capital she still believed she had. Inside that letter, audio transcripts of her calls, printouts of her emails, a medical directive she didn't know I had revoked 2 years ago. She was no longer my emergency contact, no longer able to make decisions, not even authorized to collect ashes should it ever come to that. She called Lynn in a fury. Lynn didn't answer. She was in the bathroom, on the floor, staring at herself in the mirror and mouthing the word, "How? How did she miss this? How did I beat her?" Because she thought betrayal was control, that infidelity was leverage, that my illness meant she had time, but she didn't account for my clarity. That illness didn't make me weaker. It stripped the fog. I saw the world for what it was, for what they were. And I made my final decisions with that clarity, without anger, without revenge in the traditional sense, just removal, like poison from a bloodstream. The infection was gone, and the patient already healing. The sky was a burnt orange bruise bleeding into dusk when the phone vibrated again. It lay face down on the windowsill next to a chipped mug and a half-finished crossword. The burner had only one app installed, no contacts, no history, just a quiet, pulsing notification center that refused to die. Every buzz came like an echo from a collapsing world he no longer lived in. He finally picked it up. Missed calls 266, 83 from Lynn, 47 from his mother. The rest, unknown numbers, blocked IDs. Probably lawyers, maybe vultures. He scrolled through the names. Lynn's last message wasn't a call. It was a voicemail. He didn't press play. Instead, he opened the message tab. The most recent read, "Please, I don't care about the money. Just talk to me. Please." Before that, "She doesn't need it. She didn't even know you. I was your wife." And before that, they're freezing everything. "Greg won't return my calls. You've destroyed my life." He hovered for a moment, not out of hesitation, but out of habit. Years of reading her lies and trying to decode the space between her words like some desperate translator working on a dying dialect. Then he tapped Select All and pressed Delete. The screen went dark. Outside, the lake shimmered quietly, the trees casting long shadows like arms reaching for nothing. Smoke curled lazily from the grill. He'd overcooked the chicken, but it didn't matter. The smell reminded him of weekends from a different lifetime, back when normal meant dirty sneakers and bug bites, not silence and legal prep. The cabin creaked softly with movement. Behind him, the door cracked open. Abby's voice came through, warm and even. "Dinner's ready." He didn't turn, just stood for a breath longer, watching the smoke drift upward like some ancient signal finally understood. Then he stepped inside. No phone in hand. No explanations offered. No apologies given. Inside, the table was set. Real plates, real silverware. No screens, no distractions. Just soup, bread, and the woman who once believed he had abandoned her, now pouring wine like it was never in doubt. As he sat, she asked, "You good?" He nodded. And across town, across cities, across all that rotten distance, two women stared at phones that would never ring again. Because it wasn't about time anymore. He wasn't running out of it. They were.